Lab Snow Science YouTube page that walked you through how to identify and collect and download MesoWest weather observation data for particular durations and dates. And so what I have here is data that's been extracted for a variety of sensors of my choice for the last 60 days from the Wolf Creek Pass station. So the first thing that I'm going to do, and if you need to remember how to get this data into the spreadsheet, go watch the other video. Otherwise, what I'm going to do is clean up my spreadsheet a little bit just to make it easier to process. The first thing I'm going to do is collect the station data at the top, highlight these, right-click, and then choose Delete. I can expand each of my columns by double-clicking on the boundary between the columns, just so that I can read exactly what my sensor data is. Notice that the top level gives you the sensor or the measurement type, and then the second level gives you the measured unit. I'm going to also delete the station ID here because it's not relevant. So this is what I'm starting with. I need to get this date in a format that's recognizable by Excel, and that can be sort of annoying. So the way that I like to do this is to take the data as it is like this. So format your data like this. Click on the column immediately to the right of your date and time, right click and click Insert, and do that a second time so that you have two empty columns immediately to the right of the date and time. Now what I want to do is parse this long date, which includes the time and the time zone, into just the date. All I want is the date, because ultimately what I want to be able to do with this data is make a plot with the date on the x-axis and one or more of these variables as dependent variables on the y-axis. So what I'm going to do is parse this by highlighting the column and then going to the Data tab at the top, navigating over Text to Columns under Data Tools. And this is a super useful tool for Excel where I can have Excel look at individual cells and extract the information and dump it into multiple columns based on some sort of variable that's present in that cell. And that's called delimiting. So I'm going to click the choose the file type that best describes your data. I'm going to choose delimited and then next. And then I'm going to choose this space option. The reason I'm going to choose delimited or delimiter by space is that if you look at the cell entries, you can see that I have a date and then followed by a space, I have the time, and then followed by another space, I have the time zone. And so if I tell Excel that every space they see in that cell, start a new column, then it will do that for every one of these cells. So I click space, and what you'll see when I click it is that it'll give you a real update down here for the data preview. And now it's dividing those at the space into these new columns. I'm going to go ahead and click Finish. And now you can see I've parsed that original value into 3 separate values. I don't need the time zone, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. I don't really care about the time, but maybe I'll want it, so I'll rename this time, and then I'll rename this date just so that I have it. Okay, the next thing I need to do is get the date in a format that Excel actually recognizes it as a date and not simply text. So I'm going to click and highlight that column A, my entire date. I will go to Home, and then over here under Number, I have a drop down which I get to choose what type of information is located in that column. I'm going to go to More Number Formats, and then under the Number tab up here, which is default, I'll have the categories. I'm going to select Date, and then I'm going to choose the format that is in the third option here. So that's 4 numbers to represent the year, a hyphen, 2 numbers to represent the month, a hyphen, and 2 to represent the day. So I'll click OK, and you'll see that will update my date accordingly. Okay, so now I'm in a position where I should be able to plot this. So if I want to make a plot of, say, date and whatever the air temperature is, and I should say these are all going to be in Fahrenheit as they default from MesoWest. So actually one more thing you want to be able to do here is, since all your snow pit measurements are done in Celsius, you'll want to convert that. I'll show you a nice trick to do that. So if I want to take the air temperature here and convert it into Celsius, I'll make a new column and I'll call this air temp and I'll put degree C in it. And what I can do is in this column, immediately to the right of the first value, I'll type equals, and that signifies to Excel that I want some sort of formula. And then I'll put a right-facing parentheses, or I'm sorry, not a parentheses yet. I'll just type the word convert, and you'll see that will pull up this convert function, followed by this right-facing parentheses. And then you can see in this drop-down here, it wants me to indicate the number I want to convert. So I'm going to click that. So that's going to convert this number. And then it wants it to follow by a comma, and then from unit. And once I put the comma in, it's going to give me a drop-down, and I can double-click on any one of these objects, and it's going to convert it. So this is super helpful for any sort of conversions, not just temperature conversions. But you can see I have degree Fahrenheit here, so I can double-click that, and that inserts these apostrophes or quotation marks with Fahrenheit. And now I need to put another comma, and then I get the same drop down here, but it's guessing that I wanted to convert it to another degree here. So I'll double click degree Celsius, and then I'll close my parentheses and click enter, and it gives me a value of 0 because it just so happens that 32 Fahrenheit is 0 C. So if I click and hold this small dot here and drag while I'm holding, I can pull down through all of my data. Remember, this is only 60 days of data, but it's collecting 3 data points every hour, which means over a 24-hour cycle, that's 75 data points times 60 days, which gives me 3,000 something data points. Okay, so now I have my air temp in degree C. I would want to do that for any value that I'm plotting that has Fahrenheit as the value that I'm plotting. And now I can click and highlight my new date after I've done all my conversions to that date and got it into the proper format. And then I will collect or hold Control and select air temp that I've converted to Celsius. I'll go to Insert here, and then I will choose a scatter plot. And that should give me a nice plot that looks like this. And what I see here, if I stretch this out, are my dates here. So that's starting, that's 10/31. That's before our dates actually start, because they start on the 6th. And you can see there's our data points for the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, all the way up. Notice that we have a bunch of vertical lines plotted for each of these. The reason we have vertical lines plotted is because there, again, are 3 data points for every hour. And so for every one of these 60 days, there are 75 data points. So there's actually 75 vertical points in each one of these bars. And what that represents, actually, which is pretty neat, is the diurnal change. That gives you the low bound and the high bound of temperature in degrees Celsius for each one of those days. And so it gives you a nice quick visual representation of huge swings, like you can see out here in early December, really large swings between lows, really low and up to near freezing, and other days where the diurnal swing was quite small, which can be super useful for understanding, snow pit stratigraphy. So the last things I'll do here, just to clean up this plot or to delete that because I don't really care about it, I'll go here and add axis titles. So I'd want to call this surface temperature or air temperature in degrees C, and then I might make this a little bit bigger just because it's easier to read for people that are looking at this. This would be date, and then I might make this bigger too. I don't love grid lines, so I like to deselect grid lines. They're not my favorite. You can change the size of your dates here. You can change the orientation of your dates so that they are horizontal or perpendicular. You can have the axis run or cross at a different location. So in this case, I have my axis option. I can right click on that, click format, and then if I want that x-axis to cross at a different value, I can choose a different place. Here the vertical axis crosses. I actually need to select this one here and choose format axis. And horizontal axis crosses, and I could choose an axis value of, say, minus 25. because that's my lowest point in measured temperature. And let's see what that does for me. That pops my axis down here, which makes it a little bit cleaner looking like this. So I can take this data and then I can copy and paste it into the technical report as part of the project.